Amen. As you turn to 2 Timothy, there are a couple of things I'd like to talk to you about today, if you'll let me. Before church, I asked for his permission. Thank you, Sam. Had a conversation this week. It's amazing to talk to healthy people with healthy disagreements. Negativity is one thing, disagreement's another. And disagreement's always welcome. If you disagree with something, if you have any concerns. But the first time in 19 years of being here at Grace Baptist Church, someone came to me before things festered in deciding to leave the church. It's never happened. And as many times as I've talked about, what's the thing? We go first. Then we come back with 2 or 3. Then we come back, we bring them before the church. The first time that somebody came to me and said, hey, listen, send the text. Can I pull the text? Sure. I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere, but I have some concerns that I want to talk to you about. And had a great conversation. It was probably a little over 2 hours. And then I had a Legion Hall meeting right afterwards. It was about an hour. And I tell you what, my throat that night was just on fire. And but it's okay. And I respect that kind of conversation. Sam, I love you. I really appreciate it. I really do. That's how relationships, by the way, are built. So, I have here 3 pages, because today's going to be 3 sermons. I'm sorry. I knew that I'd be at the pulpit within 10 minutes of starting the service. We're going to add more. We have to add more music or something, don't we? No? Oh, you just want to be out your super? Okay. Okay, whatever. So most of this I have that I want to read. You people that are sitting in these chairs today, you don't. When I come, I'm going to try very hard not to speak with any sarcasm because you don't need it. However, I have it scripted, and I double-checked this script with Chris yesterday before. I have never in 19 years let somebody double-check what I'm about to say. I didn't let you double-check on purpose, and you'll see why. And no, it's good. But because, what happened in the last few weeks needs to be talked about. I'll just read this, okay? So, I will start. I want to read most of this. My words, they're my words, but I don't want to miss anything. Don't want to misword it. Chris suggested yesterday that I take 2 statements out, and I have. It has become clear to me that the lack of information might have some people in our church frustrated. And if that be the case, that's my fault. So I'm going to cover a couple of things before the sermon to help the last few weeks make more sense. My usual MO, modus operandi, is that right? Okay. Is to say as little as possible in order to have everyone walk away with as much positivity and dignity as possible. Such has been the case here for me. The sermon 3 weeks ago was that point for me. And by the way, it is the sermon points that are over there. And notice it says there, we will not let things fester. Love it. Somebody listen to the sermon. Wait, you weren't here for that sermon. We did talk about that too, but it became clear to me that the lack of So, such has been the case for me. The sermon 3 weeks ago was that point for me, but alas, lo and behold, it did not work. So I'm going to give you some more detail. It's amazing how much information makes it back its way to the pastor, but I will still stay with a few basics because all the information doesn't need to be known. I will scratch the surface today, if you will. In the sermon 2 weeks ago, when I gave that, I said that I told somebody, the Johnsons, that you're not happy here. Go find where you can be happy. That was the end of many hours of conversation. That's all I gave you because I thought that would be enough. However, I was wrong. Matt confronted Cole in front of the church 4 weeks ago, and he was 100% justified in doing so. Cole was borderline bullying Gavin and Ethan for months. Comments before church, and if you wonder why Gavin and Ethan were spending time coming in late, come to find out that's why. By the way, let me throw this in there. Not once did he tell me about it. There's no, it's not gossip. He just didn't tell me. So I didn't know about it. Like Matt readily accepting invites to speak to other churches. I'm like, man, what are you doing? Come on. But, and other things going on. But this was why I come to find out. So in the kitchen 5 weeks ago, Miranda finally overheard one of the comments from Cole to Gavin and Ethan, and Miranda said something in defense of her kids. I see some heads shaking up and down. You were here, like Rebecca was there for it. And by the way, people confront each other when there's an issue. Paul withstood Peter to the face in front of everyone. Paul and Barnabas had a contention so sharp that it separated them for life. The early church had a lot of problems and a lot of murmuring. Paul wrote a lot about people who have separated themselves from him. So, usually in things like this, I try my best to find peace, common ground, and understanding. And after Matt left that day, that's what I tried to do. However, in this conversation, Cole said 3 things that could not be overlooked. Notice I said Cole said them. Judd didn't say them. Jackie didn't say them. Cole said them. He said first, number 1, your kids said this to Matt to his face, your kids are a disgrace and I would be embarrassed to be their dad. You all have a problem with that, right? I heard this with my own ears, as did several others. Number 2, he said this, your wife needs to mind her own business. At least 5 people, including me, heard this with their own ears. And, well, I'm going to get to it in a moment. And then number 3, Matt, he said to me on the way in, he said, I would fold Matt like a chair. So, that's not secondhand information, that's from me. Or to me, not from me, to me. Men, this is not sarcasm. Would you let it go if someone looked at you and disrespected your wife? Would you, at minimum, as a pastor of the church, expect me to say something? And the answer to that question is yes. At the time, out front, I didn't see it as a big deal, which raised confusion later. It came back that when I did have a problem with it. But the more I thought about it, again, I'm still reading, the more I realized the gravity of the problem. Matt and I talked about what I should do. I didn't agree with his take and compromised with our take as the staff. We came up with a plan because the first step biblically had already been taken. Matt talked to Cole. Go 1-to-1. That's what you do. Matter of fact, he was He was made fun, or one of the accusations he got was because he waited till Cole's by himself instead of other people around. That's what you're supposed to do. So. Let's see, and then second, you go back to 2 or 3. So I told Cole and Josie the next week, out back, that we all need to meet to get this right. An appointment was set for later that day. This was the next week. I sent a text to Josie, encouraged her to invite her parents, but they declined. Cole, Josie, okay, so this is the meeting that happened then 3 weeks ago. Cole, Josie, Matt, Chris, and I met for almost 2 hours 3 weeks ago, and Miranda was there via FaceTime. She was the one disrespected, and we wanted her to be there instead of waiting. Suffice it to say this, those 3 things that Cole said, he doubled down on all 3 statements. Am I telling the truth here? Chris, with tears in his eyes, encouraged him to think about this for a while and the implications of what he has just said. Chris, in our meeting over there, tears. Cole, think about this and what this means. And realize the ramifications of saying what he said and not taking it back, and double down. And Cole said he stood by everything he said. Is that how it happened? I can look over here again. Is that how it happened? Yes. Matter of fact, I'm not going to share it with you. It's not fair to anybody. I have this all on recording, and I got a permission to record it. I listened to it again. What I'm telling you is factual. Matt said, by the end of close to the end of the conversation, he doesn't feel safe with his kids nor his wife in church with Cole in the mindset that he is. To which Cole replied that he didn't feel that Josie was safe in his church. To which we all just kind of looked at each other in dumb silence, like, what? Matt said, maybe you should find a place where you do feel safe. And Cole said, that is the first thing that you've ever said that we agree on. It was 100% Cole's choice to separate Josie from her church. 100%. He doubled down on everything he said. He backed it up and said it again during that 2-hour meeting. Now, these are the things I didn't tell you, but then I realized, there are people in the church that are sincere, loving, and would have concerns about why somebody would be gone. She then told everyone that Matt, Chris, and I told them to leave when we never did. We did not tell anybody to leave the church. We have never, okay, I was about to say we've never kicked anybody out of the church. You've kicked somebody out of the church. That was in our early days. This guy said something weird about our kids, like gross, and Matt just grabbed him, Chris grabbed him by the elbow and marched out the back door and, go back to your house and don't come back. And, which, by the way, you didn't check with me on that. But again, she told everyone that Matt, Chris, and I told them to leave when we never, ever did. So, Judd and Jackie, believing Cole and Josie, then drove up the river to talk to me, but I didn't want it to be a conversation that was full of secondhand information, so I called Chris and Matt to meet as well. So, this was close to midnight at the store in Leeburg, which didn't make people happy that it wasn't just me. I called him, he showed up, he got there about 5 minutes into the conversation. All three of us and Lisa told them exactly what happened in this meeting, and the statement kept on coming up. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. But the decision had already been made by that point, by then. Matt apologized to Judd 3 times. I'm not sure what I did to offend you, but with all of my heart, I'm sorry. I'll do what it takes to make it right. Lisa, is that what he said? Yes. Completely ignored. Matt apologized to Josie in that Sunday afternoon meeting over here. It was accepted by Josie, but scorned by Cole. Matt apologized to Jackie that night at Leeburg, and she did say that's appreciated. So the day that I met with Judd out front wasn't just me saying, you're not happy here, go find a place where you can be happy. But what I gave you is I was hoping to be a summation of what had happened, and it wasn't enough information. And I apologize for that. That's my fault. I'm still not coming up here trying to win my case. I'm still not coming up here trying. I'm just telling you what happened, and I'm just scratching the surface. I could talk about this for hours. And we can actually go back more than a decade, and I can show you where the foundations of all of this happened. I was wrong. More information was needed. So, I have this in bold on my sheet. You saw it yesterday. Cole got his way, and the family followed. I misjudged how much information to give. That's my fault. But even with this, I'm not giving all the information. It could be hours of talking. The Johnsons are welcome back at this church anytime. Cole and Josie would be welcome back. There would have to be public repentance for them to do so. And by the way, I'm just scratching the surface on all of this. I'm going to state this emphatically. Matt Burkhead is not the problem. But the question must be asked, where did Cole's hate for the Burkheads come from when he only knew them for 5 or 6 weeks? That's what you should take home and think about. This isn't about Matt Burkhead. It's really not even about Cole. He was just a manifestation of something else. Please, I encourage you, again, I'm reading, talk to Chris and or Matt and or me. All three of us can talk to you. We can give a couple-hour breakdown. Can we not? And everything will make sense again. But you see what I was trying to do, though? I was trying to just, let's speak and move on. And I didn't give enough information. I handled it incorrectly with you. There are 2 sides to every story, and Chris and I have officiated both on this issue. Church, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you believe me to be honest? If not, do you believe Chris to be honest? If Matt was in the wrong, I would tell both him and you that he was. The biggest disappointment as I was putting this to paper yesterday, well, actually the sermon is about 3 weeks old, because I feel like I haven't spoken to the church, and because you still got your time. You took one of my weeks. I think I haven't spoken in 3 weeks, so I feel like this is new. The biggest disappointment for me as a pastor, yet the most encouraging for me as a pastor, is to look back at the previous 2 months of messages, knowing that the Lord knew it was going to happen. I just thought the last 3 messages, I'd go back and look. I went back a couple months, and you can see a progression of the sermons. Helm of the flesh, talking about the tongue. Return, talking about the difference between David and Saul. How God treated them differently, but yet I think David's sins were a lot worse than Saul's, don't you? But it was how he reacted to God. Ye of little faith, remember that, talking about endurance. Sour grapes, talking about generational issues. Lessons from Isaac's well digging. I look back at that, and I was amazed. The Lord knew it. He gave us a prescription, and we didn't follow it. Maybe we should listen. I don't come here and say, this is what God says. I don't do that. I go off hunches. I go off of whatever the case is. And you know what? God had some messages lined up for us. I hope we're listening to them. And of course, I only limited this to mine. I didn't even go back to yours and yours to see. I was just looking at the notes and videos from my own. So, with that, I hope this is a done case. I hope it's in the past. I have not shunned them. If you handle it how you want to handle it, the church has no official position on this.